All right. So we got the hits, we got the classics on that Dexter Resurrection episode 1. Now, we've gotten to see almost all of our old people. Like we've got, we got Harrison, Dexter's dad, we got Sergeant James Dokes in the building. I said, come on now, you can't hit me with the classics. You cannot do that to me. He's a surprise, motherfucker. I said, oh, here we go, because they sort of recapped everything that happened in New Blood, right? And after when his Dexter's girlfriend Angela, like when she found out about he's basically the Bay Harbor Butcher, but then it gets murky. It gets really murky because it's like they knew they fucked up. They knew they fucked up in New Blood because it was going down in a direction that we didn't like, because it was like, okay, like this is how everything like comes out about Dexter, but then they just rechanged the whole thing where she leaves. She takes her daughter and leave, right? And then that's when Teddy comes into like the hospital, and that's when Dexter is thinking like he's gonna get arrested. So that's when he gives him like, I guess, like the picture, and then it says like, well, I basically did you a solid, now leave Salt Lake City, or basically just leave, right? Just leave like the place that he's at right now. So and he's like, okay, and because Dexter at the time is thinking that Teddy was gonna arrest him. He was thinking that because while he was in the coma for like 10 months, right? He was going through like all of the hallucinations, like he's seeing his father. We even got to see the Trinity Killer. Now this shit was getting crazy. I'm like, yo, we got the Trinity Killer, and he was like, well, and they had like this whole monologue. It was like, well, technically, it was really your fault, but then he was like, yeah, but you killed Rita, and then he was like, yeah, but now your son is a serial killer now, from serial killer to serial killer. I was like, they really threw out the hits. Because I'm telling you, nobody wasn't feeling like that ending of New Blood, because everything was going really well, seasoned really well, but the ending was really rushed, and it was like, this isn't what we was looking for. So I understand what they doing, but I'm not gonna. They doing damage control. This episode was really damage control, and I'm like, we're gonna see how they're gonna do. We're gonna see how they're gonna do, like in Resurrection. We're gonna really see, because after when like Dexter was going through all of like trip down memory lane, and he was seeing everybody that he's seen, right? That's when he wakes up, and then that's when the doctor tells him, he's like, okay, he's been in a coma for 10 months. So it's like, all right, cool. Then he going through like rehab, and then that's when we see Batista. Captain Batista, he comes back, and it's like, okay, great to see him. And then that's when they started talking. He's like, so what really happened? Like, what went on? And that's when he said, after when Deb died, after Rita died, he was like, he just couldn't take it anymore. And that's when he jumped into the hurricane, and that's when he wanted to end his life alongside her. But then in the hurricane, like, he lost Deborah, and that's when he was like, Batista was hearing him out. But then that's when that question had to come up, because at the time, Chief Angela at the time, she told Batista, was like, I think he might be the Bay Harbor Butcher, and she was telling him like, wait, what? Dexter is alive. And that's when all the dots was like being put together. So he's like, all right, I'm coming up there right now. So that's when he was asking him the question, and he was like, well, you remember Legreta? Remember her? And he was like, yeah. Remember when she said that? Last thing I remember, she told me you was a Bay Harbor Butcher. Crazy, right? Yeah, crazy. He said, remember Sergeant James Dokes? Remember that time he was always used to call me all these weird names? But something just stuck out to me when he just kept on saying you was the Bay Harbor Butcher. And then your ex-girlfriend basically shoots you in the chest. You live. And she said that you was the Bay Harbor Butcher. That sounds really, it sounds like a coincidence, isn't it? He's in Dexter, like, he's just playing, coy, like, yeah, it does sound like a coincidence. And that's when he says, okay, I'll come back tomorrow, check up on you. Oh, by the way, your name is being reinstated as Dexter Morgan. And that's when Dexter was like, okay, this dude is trying to put my shit away in prison. So that's when he tells him, my arms is hurt, my shoulder and everything still hurt me. So that's when Dexter forms up a plan of escaping, because he can't stay there, because he knows that Batista would probably drag his ass back to Miami for an arrest and be like, well, technically you are the Bay Harbor Butcher, because if anybody remembers, in like the Dexter series, there was 200 bodies found, a whole bunch of bodies found in the ocean. And seeing how we have like Dexter Original Sin, and seeing how like Dexter has been starting off his early killings, those 200 bodies adds up to the original story of him killing a whole bunch of people and then just dumping a body off into the water. So we know that Batista knows that technically, Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher. So he is going to get him, or try to get him at least, because Dexter escapes the hospital because he's like, oh hell no, I gotta go find where my son is at. Because one of the nurses tells him like, oh, there was an incident that happened in New York City where a person got chopped up into like 9 pieces. And that's when he was like, wait, what, New York City? Oh shit. And then that's when he goes to New York City to go find Harrison. Now for Harrison's part, it's like, okay, he wakes up, he's fresh and he's working at the Empire Hotel, right? He got his GED. He's, working on himself. He's doing really well. He's doing fine for himself, right? And then that's when the fuck shit starts to happen, where he's in the elevator and he's greeting like the guests, and then that's when he sees like the blood, like as his mom was still stuck back when he was in upstate New York. And that's when like the blood and like the whole ice, where I guess he was probably maybe thinking about, I guess, his dad, because the things that happen upstate, it really sort of like still stayed with him. It didn't really like go away. And again, it was only 10 weeks, so it's still fresh. It's not like it was a year or 2 years. No, that shit is still fresh. So he is, still, hallucinating, still thinking about that. And then that's when he meets a female named Shauna, who's, I guess, into medical. And that's when he talks to her for a little bit. But then that's when later on, there's this dude named Ryan Foster, where he, I guess, slips some Mickey into a drink. And then he lies to Harrison and say, oh, she's my wife, and I'm taking her upstairs real quick. And then that's when Harrison was like, wait, you married? Yeah, I'm married. 11th floor. Takes him up to his floor. And then that's when he was like, so, are you sure? Like, I don't know. That's when he, says, here's this money, right? Go about your business. But then that's when Harrison was really thinking about it. He was like, not my problem. But then that's when he heard, like, Shauna was like, I don't want this. Please let me go. And that's when he just brushes in there. He's like, you need to stop this. And then that's when they get into a scruffle. They start fighting. And then that's when Ryan tells him, he's like, well, there's more girls I can get anyway. And then that's when Harrison beats his ass and then he kills him. But then he, wraps up his body, cleans the bathroom, cleans, the hotel, well, the room that he was in, goes into the kitchen area and chops him up. But then the fatal mistake that he made was when he chopped up the body, the blood splatter hit the ceiling. Like, it hit the ceiling. And that's when he proceeded to, like, chop up the body and put the bodies in, like, some garbage bags. And then that's when he shipped the garbage bags over, right? And when sanitation picked up the trash, and that's when they took it. But then like the bag ripped, and it was like, oh, that's when some feet was out. So cops was called, 2 detectives showed up. So the female detective, right, she goes into a thing of, I guess, trying to figure out like what happened. So she goes into her little detective mode, and then that's when she like finds like all of the pieces and puts it together and said, oh, it's this guy named Ryan Foster. And you find out that Ryan Foster was actually an SA person who got away with it for a very long time. So go over to the hotel and they do an investigation, and they're like, okay, we need to scrub this place clean. We need to figure out what's going on. So Harrison is like, scared. He's nervous because, again, he's not used to this. Like, he's not really used to it, because in his mind, he still thinks that he killed his father, which Dexter, he didn't, because we seen at the ending where Dexter is in the car and he finds Harrison at the hotel. He's like, he's proud that his son finally, is doing well for himself, but then at the same time, he is going to figure a way of maybe getting, close to him or back in his life again, because when we seen like Dexter's father telling him, like, it's not too late for you. You can go see your son. James Dokes was telling him in a hallucination, like, I can see some good in you, even though that whole Bay Harbor Butcher shit is crazy, but I can still see some good in you. Like, there was like pieces to all of the hallucinations that was given to Dexter of he still was a monster, he still is a serial killer, he still is feeding his dark passenger, but then at the same time, there is some light within him, there's some good within him. So it's like he has to figure a way of getting that out, of drawing that part out and showing that part to Harrison, because it's crazy how Angela just flipped the whole script and said that black cop in New Blood was like, oh, it was a weird accident and he got killed. And I said, I'm telling you, it was as if they was just erasing the bad part, because they knew the fans was like, this is on some bullshit. They knew the fans wasn't feeling it, so they kind of like put some band-aids over the situation. Was like, okay, we're not gonna make it seem like everybody knows that Dexter's the Bay Harbor Butcher, because when he was in the hospital and Teddy came in, he thought Teddy was gonna arrest him, and I thought like, hey, maybe there would have been like some handcuffs or something. He would have been handcuffed to the bed. None of that. So they knew they fucked up, so they said, all right, we knew we messed up, so let's try to like put some band-aids over the situation, which they did. But the only person that knows about Dexter being alive and know about him being a Bay Harbor Butcher is Captain Batista. And we know Batista will find Dexter again and be like, hold up here, like, son, you the Bay Harbor Butcher. Like, people end up dead and shit. I mean, you framed James Dokes, like, I gotta sort of bring you in for this. And James Dokes, no, I'm sorry, Captain Batista and Quinn and I forgot the other guy's name, the other Asian dude's name, Masuka. Those three are the only three that is technically are still alive and that are still connected to Dexter. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Masuka or we see Quinn, right? If they ever show up. But for now, we got like Captain Batista that's still around, and he is the one that's gonna try to bring in Dexter and be like, well, technically, you are the Bay Harbor Butcher, and there's some evidence that can kind of sort of maybe tie you into this, despite everything, because there has been people who said he is, but oh my god, this shit, it was like, yo, I'm telling you, they put a whole band-aid on the whole New Blood situation, because I'm telling you, everybody wasn't feeling that ending. But I am curious to see what they're gonna do for this story of Dexter. Like, how are they gonna go with this? Like, how are they gonna spin this story, and where is it gonna lead to at the end? Because it's like Dexter's happy that he finally found his son, but then I guess he's conflicted because he told his son to shoot him, and his son did shoot him, and his son did made it clear that he's not like his father. But we did see that he did kill a guy, even though he's not used to it, and we don't know if he will ever be used to it or if he will be like Dexter. We don't know how this story is gonna play out for Harrison, but it's getting interesting, right? And then we got to see I guess like Uma Thuma's character. And I guess this whole invitation to the whole serial killers club, because there was a guy I think she followed, and that's when he had like state IDs and it was all like checked off, I guess, of the kills that he made. So she went over there and dropped like an invitation. So we know there's gonna be like a whole serial killers game thing, because from what we see in the trailer. So that's gonna be another take to see. But overall, y'all, this episode it was damage control. I'm just gonna say, like, this episode was damage control. Did I like it? Yeah, come on. You know I'm gonna say yes. You know I'm gonna say yes, because they keep trying to sucker me in for this shit. But I will say that this episode was damage control, very damage control. But overall, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you all in the next one.